What's up, everybody? I'm Scott,
And I'm Jason.
and you are listening to Liquid Carnage. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm good, man. It's good to hear your voice. How you been?
I am good. I am working on getting doctor's clearance to get back to regular activities.
Good.
That feels pretty good.
Okay.
I realize, though, everyone's right. When you reach the age of 40, you've come to a fork in the road, a crossroads, if you will, that either you get really into the Civil War or smoking meats. I have chosen the latter.
Oh, smoking meats. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, very
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Or World War II. I guess past American wars is probably a better statement than the Civil War or World War II. But
yeah, I think that's the best way to say it. How about war history?
yes, the history of war. Let's call it
history
that.
of war.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been an adventurous week. Janice and I are trying to find new living room furniture, and it's an interesting discussion when you're trying to buy new furniture. It was one thing when it was just me. And now there's someone else to consider input wise, style wise, and trying to navigate finding new living room furniture was our adventure of the weekend.
Oh, and is there a particular style that she likes that she's looking for? Like, for example, does she want the big sectional? Does she want the big sectional couch?
Yeah, and that's actually what we settled on because I found a sectional that worked for me that had a recliner in it. Because my big deal is I wanted to recline, at least part of it that reclined. And she likes to
and for the reason of you are 40 now.
I am 40, and I realized if I'm going to go full old man, I'm going to go full old man. I mean, there's no other way around it, right?
Continue.
So I found a couch online from Living Spaces because I was watching the Suns game the other night. I saw the ad, went to the website, and I found it was a sectional. It had 3 recliners. They had USB ports, all the modern technology stuff in it, and it was a great deal.
Good.
So I was like, let's do this. And then she said, well, let's go look at these stores in town just to see, just to look, just to compare prices. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I see it, I'm going to pull the trigger on it type of guy. Otherwise, if I think about it, I'm going to waffle on it for 6 months.
Yeah,
so
I'm with you.
Long story short, we're not getting the couch that I found online.
Welcome to long-term relationship, my friend.
Yeah, we are getting a sectional, but I have managed to get my own recliner, so I'm getting a separate recliner, not attached to the couch. But the one I found, it is very in our EP Tom will appreciate this, very Star Trek-esque in the way it's shaped. So I'm very excited for my recliner that I'm going to purchase, but I have to wait for the sale that's coming up because the guy told us to come back because it'll be on discount later on this week. So,
oh, good, yeah, because I was going to say furniture is one of those things where they'll give some pretty good pricing, but you got to definitely do it during the sale because they'll gouge on the suggested retail price.
Exactly. So we're navigating this while Janice is getting ready to go back to school too. So. My logic of thinking was like, well, babe, I love sitting next to you on the couch, but when you're in that office working away and I just want to sit on the couch and watch baseball or whatever, I just want to be able to recline. And
I think that's a really good idea. I know that I kind of chuckle and make fun of Noreen a little bit too, because she's like invariably, hey, what do you think of these 2 colors? That she'll have like, I don't know, like paint for one reason. We can either do this brown or we can do this green. Ooh, I really like the green one, Noreen. I think that's a really nice color. Okay, good, because we're going to do the brown.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's funny because we were having drinks with our friends the other night, the Kowalskas, and we were talking about paint colors and whatever else, and Danielle kept saying, well, you got to look at this color, There's a laugh, and I was like, Daniel, it doesn't make a difference what color I pick.
Exactly.
And let's be real, at this point, it doesn't make a difference what color Janice picks. We're having this conversation with you because we care about the color you're going to pick because you're much better at this than we are.
Yeah, well, and with Noreen, it's funny because not only will she say, okay, we have a choice between brown and green. Okay, I'll take the green one. We're going with brown. There's this look of like total disgust in her eyes that she hides. She tries to hide from me. about how in the world could you have picked green, you idiot.
Yeah. You should, after 10 years, you should know better.
You should know better that, hey, this is the way it's going to go.
Yeah. And that's kind of where this one went too. It's like I had a good idea, but I figured I might as well go down swing because I thought the couch I found was a nice compromise. And like ultimately we're both getting what we want, which is the name of the game here. We both win.
Well, I feel like I did a very good civic duty this weekend. My father-in-law celebrated his 91st birthday.
Oh, okay.
This weekend, or Friday, actually. Well, and in the vein of celebrating this special birthday, his younger brother, who is 10 years younger than him, and his wife rode motorcycles from like Santa Fe, New Mexico, down to Phoenix and spent a couple days with us here in Phoenix. Now, the reason why I did such a good thing was they have been locked down with COVID, all the COVID stuff. So they haven't left their house in a year.
Oh, wow.
And these two are, even at that advanced age, they are the typical long distance motorcycle camping, traveling people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's nothing for them to travel 400 miles a day on a motorcycle.
Oh, that sounds tiring.
Now, when they had the opportunity, because now they both have their vaccines, and they had the opportunity to get on their bikes after, like I said, a year, they were more than anxious to drive down to spend the couple days with us and celebrate my father-in-law's birthday.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And but it's like everyone gets the itch, and then it gets to a point where you say, you know what, I got to get back to living. And they were like so jazzed about driving their motorcycles all the way down here.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Now they're because of their age, though, I think that they would prefer trikes.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. They don't prefer trikes. They drive trikes because they just have to have a little bit more control.
Yeah, more stability. Now, if I remember right, this is a funny story. I remember way back in the day, you looked at getting a trike even as a joke for a minute.
I don't know if I ever would have, because I like the 2-seater myself, but I definitely thought getting a trike would be kind of fun.
But yeah, you brought it up to Noreen, and what did Noreen say to you?
She says you're not 70 yet, so no.
Oh, that's true. That's probably the PG-rated version of what she said.
Yeah, we'll stick with that version because I don't want to get too graphic.
I get that.
We try. I know we're an adult podcast, but we try to keep it a little clean.
That makes sense.
We try to keep it a little clean.
That makes sense.
But so I mean, so people are starting to like get back in the swing of things. Like people are starting. Like we have some friends now that are actually in 2022. They're talking about, for New Year's, going on a cruise again. So, I mean, you can tell that the vaccine is starting to help people. Like, okay, here's my new normal. I can't sit around any longer. I got to do some stuff.
Yeah. And, it's interesting when you read the news and you watch everything. And, I was listening to a report yesterday last week where the CEOs of Pfizer and Moderna were saying, well, you might need a third and fourth shot, because this is going to take a lot longer to get up than we thought, boosters and all. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't about health at that point. That's about more money. And I don't know how much I agree with that, but I guess we'll wait and see and play it out, and I'm fine with this becomes a seasonal shot, like the flu shot, whatever. I get if that's what it is, that's what it is. But I get so intrigued by the people that, refuse to acknowledge that modern advancement in technology could produce a vaccine in a fast manner, because they don't know what's in it, but they're not afraid to take their current medication because, well, it was developed 50 years ago, so it has to be safe.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Because it's almost like, well, this is causing some side effects, but other drugs, they're safe.
Yeah.
We don't worry about it.
Exactly. And I think that's the cool part about like the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, not to get off topic, but when you're dealing with the mRNA, like that deals with, where it teaches your body how to build the antibody, it's a very cool concept because you don't have that live virus like you do in the flu virus,
Right.
The amount of conspiracy theories that come from that are just mind-blowing. And and albeit a little bit terrifying if you sit and you buy into any of them, but man, people are really finding some crazy theories out there, or creating some too.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, as you can probably well expect, when you talk to someone who's advanced age, and they come from a small little town in New Mexico, you can probably assume which way their political tilt is.
Yes.
And if you've listened to this show long enough, or if you know me and Scott, or at least me, probably Scott, but me for sure, you can probably surmise or guess that my tilt is opposite of maybe the tilt of,
yes,
my in-laws that came, or not in-laws, but the family that came in town.
Yeah, I'd go with that. Yeah.
And I love how when you ever start talking about debate topics, how the information that they use as their background for why they believe what they do or not seems so over the top, like it's almost impossible to think that that's actually a true number, but they throw it out like so anxiously to get like the information. Like, I don't remember what the topic was, but it was probably something, a hot button topic. I think it was about illegal immigrants. And he was saying, in New Mexico, 50% of the illegal immigrants are on welfare. I said, 50% of the illegal, how do they know that? Well, they just know. And I said, well, if the illegal immigrants can't track because they're not in our systems, how do you know that they're illegal? And he just stumped them. He's like,
yeah.
So it's like, oh my gosh, don't throw these numbers out. It boggles my mind. Please don't.
Yeah,
don't.
I did that a few weeks ago with one of my dad's friends. He was complaining about why people are getting pissed at Georgia for the voter suppression laws, and I tried to explain to him what some of those perks were that were put in about not being able to give anyone water or food in the lines in Georgia, and why it came about. He didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to believe that was started the way the precipitous of why that all started was what it was. It's very quick to dismiss any other logic than the logic of certain news channels, which is unfortunate, because if you don't have an open mind, you can't form any new opinions.
Yeah, well, like these guys were talking, they were talking about the laws, and I said, so you probably are okay with these laws, even though that realistically they are kind of violating the 15th Amendment. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, the 15th Amendment gives us the right to vote, and these laws, while they don't stop us from voting, they certainly curtail our ability to vote. And he goes, oh my gosh, I totally agree that that's okay. I mean, we're not stopping you from voting. We're just limiting, what we're just limiting on, the ways that you can vote illegally or vote fraudulently. I said, oh, so it's a protection to stop fraudulent use of the voting, right? That's what you're saying to me? Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. I said, oh, then you should have no problem with eliminating, banning assault rifles then, and getting rid of the 30 bullet clips. He goes, what are you talking about? I go, well, that's not stopping you from the Second Amendment. It's just limiting your ability to commit a crime. And he's just like, no, that's totally different. Totally different. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So you don't mind violating the 15th Amendment, but you have no problem protecting the Second Amendment.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy how it gets. It's not to get on a tangent with that. But yeah, people still fall for that, all that bullshit you find on social media about, we dare the government to come take our guns, Second Amendment, yeah. And they always forget about the second half of that amendment to an orderly militia. What's the...
Yeah, the right to bear arms to assemble an orderly
well-maintained militia.
Yeah.
It's all fun and games until you mention that part. Like, well, that wasn't a militia on January 6th. Or, these guys weren't militias. Like, okay. So this is just cherry picking what you thought was normal. That's fine.
Well, and I mean, that it was one of the topics that I found interesting is that there was the discussion that came up about removing they asked me what I thought about removing like Confederate monuments from the South, trying to get rid of the monuments. And I thought that's an interesting question. I didn't really quite answer it right away. I just said, so what are your thoughts? And their answer is the typical answer that you get from someone who disagrees with removing the monuments. That removing the monuments changes, it's erasing our history. It's erasing our history. And I said, oh, okay, so if I understand correctly, you're telling me that by removing the monument for, I don't know, Robert E. Lee, for example, that you're erasing the history of the United States, and you feel that history should be honored and memorialized in statues, because you got to keep our history. Oh, yeah, totally. I said, oh, so you'd be okay then if we put a statue of Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City, right? Because that's part of our history too. And she just looked at me like deadpan, like, that's not what I'm saying. Well, you wanted to protect history. That's what you said, that you didn't like the fact that they're taking down these monuments because they are erasing history.
So do you just not want your in-laws to talk to you because you understand semantics, or?
No, what I'm trying to do for my in-laws was just simply help them argue their points better, because I don't think that sometimes, I think they only look at their arguments from their perspective, and it's almost like they're so used to talking to people of like thought process that as soon as they face someone who might have a different challenge to their thoughts, I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I'm just trying to say you might want to think that it's a little bit more of a complex topic when you talk about these things than just, yes, we need to do it, or no, we don't need to do it.
So you're trying to get them not to think so one-dimensionally.
Well, I'm trying to also just point out the flaw, how, make sure that you're not hypocritical.
Yeah, that's
with
fair.
with your law, with your philosophy. I mean, if you say that all history should be kept up, then you have no problem then with a famous child molester being honored on your streets because, hey, that's part of your history.
Yeah, I guess once you start making points like that, it does make someone take a step back and make sure that how they are arguing something does cover both every angle possible without looking like an idiot.
I read a book interesting, and he was talking about his own life, that he has a set of principles that he lives by, and his thought is that it's easier to make the right decision 100% of the time than it is to make the right decision 98% of the time. And for some reason that just stuck with me. And the reason why it came up is that in college, he played basketball.
Uh-huh.
He was a very religious person. And at one point, their team was going into like a championship game that was going to be played on Sunday. And he refused to play. And the team was upset, and the coach was upset. And he said, look, I believe in my religion, and my religion says I can't work on the day, on Sunday. So he didn't play the game. Now the team won the game, but he said that they were really upset at him because they felt like he dishonored the team. But for him, he said, I never regret the decision because it's easier to be right 100% of the time than it is to be right 98%.
Yeah.
And I think with some of these arguments that I hear, as soon as your argument cannot withstand a hit of the same logic but from a different perspective, then it's not 100% right, and you need to go back and figure out what your argument is.
Yeah, no, that's actually a very valid point and a very good way to put it.
I've always thought about that. It's like it's easier to be right 100% of the time than 98%, because that means that 2% of the time you had to struggle to make a decision that went against what you stand for.
Yeah.
And then if you're able to do it 2%, what happens when you do it 3%, 5%, 10%?
Then it starts to get blurry. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what makes it hard.
Yeah.
No, I get that. It makes a lot of sense. And, people need to recognize that. And if more people recognize that and did their own research and so forth, I think we'd be in a lot different world.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's part of the problem of why we are where we are in this world right now, is because we've let opinions get so politicized that it makes it hard to really, understand what is real versus what is not, or maybe not so much that, but the facts versus blurred truths might be the best way to put it, and how they get spread throughout the world.
Well, and because I did comment, I said, I think there are some symbols that, whether they're part of our history or not, do not need to be. They need to be taken down. Like, for me, there's a big difference between a statue of Robert E. Lee and the Confederate flag. The Confederate flag, you guys lost. There is no Confederacy. So that image of the Confederate flag does not mean Confederacy anymore. It means something completely different, and it does not meet to the ideals that the United States or Americans would like to adhere to. So I have no problem removing things that don't represent the best of us.
So why do you think people want? There's a growing number of people out there that want the Confederacy to come back.
I truly think that because they, it's funny, they talked about that too. They were talking about Texas wanting to secede from the United States. We don't like the way the United States does things. We can do everything better ourselves.
They proved that with their infrastructure during the snowstorms.
Well, that is that's a huge thing, and their arguments were, we should probably try to cater to Texas, because if Texas takes those oil fields, then the gas is going to be more expensive for everybody else.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's a good point. That's a really good point. But, California is the 5th largest economy in the world. I think I'd be more worried about California saying we're going to be our own country than Texas.
Yeah, it's true too.
Because, you know what I mean? Like, California, if they seceded, they make us the largest economy in the world, but they're the 5th largest by themselves.
That's nuts.
And that's crazy to think about. But the argument that just comes about is, okay, so what if they did leave? Are they going to pay their portion of the debt? Because frankly, since they're the 3rd largest population or 2nd largest population in the United States, they have to take a pretty big chunk of the debt too.
Yeah, you would think. You would think it would make sense, but I was reading about that when Texas first talked about thinking that they're going to secede, and how much money they'd have to pay back to the U.S. government and all the infrastructure they'd have to set up on their own. And,
right.
And I think this is a theory argument versus a practice argument. Yeah, it's the I'm going to do this unless I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm going to hold my breath until you give me what I want, and ultimately you never actually do it. So. If Texas wants to go, fuck it, Texas. See you later. You had a good run, but we all know it's more work than it's worth, and they don't have the economy to sustain that. They'd be back within 2 years.
Well, and I also think, that we already fought a war to keep us together.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. Obviously, you don't know your history well enough if you're now saying, well, even though we made such a sacrifice 150 years ago, now, who cares?
Well, generally the people screaming nonsense like that are the ones that don't know their history. That's why they're doomed to repeat it.
Well, that's oh boy, that's probably true. Because I think a lot of people, like, I'm hearing things now where they're saying, oh, Kamala Harris, she's the worst vice president we've ever had. And I'm like, well, first of all, she's only been there 3 months. Second of all, you obviously don't know your history, because we had Dan Quayle.
Yeah.
Okay. The guy couldn't even spell. So, I hope that you don't even look back at history to find out.
Yeah, but let's be real. The people that are saying that, they're not forming their own opinion. They're just parroting what they've read off their news sources.
True. Yeah.
It's impossible to form that kind of opinion on someone after 3 months, let alone say they're the worst in history. Time ultimately will tell, but I don't think there's been enough activity to really make that argument. But it's still just it's a frustrating point, and it really shines a light on how divisive our media can get and is getting, and it's bad for the world. It's bad for the country.
When you I was going to ask you this when I was thinking about this topic. When you go to Arizona Cardinal Stadium,
mm-hmm.
and you look at the Pat Tillman statue,
mm-hmm.
what do you think of, or what images or what memories or what are your thoughts when you look at that statue?
As a hero, man.
As a hero, right?
That is a man that you can say anything you want about a lot of people, but that man gave up fortune and fame to go fight for his country, and
died for his
country. Died for his country. And ultimately, I after reading the book about him, I firmly believe that he died to cover up some nefarious dealings from the U.S. government. But that's neither here nor there. It's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, he did what he thought was right. And that was a man, no matter what he did what he thought was right. And
and I think that for me, you said it best. It's not just a soldier. I mean, if we had a statue for every man, woman that fought for the United States, they would probably be worthy of those statues.
Yeah.
But his statue is even more compelling because of the sacrifice, both financially, safety, his life, the sacrifice for his country.
Yeah.
Right? The sacrifice for his country. And to me, when I look at a statue, I want to be inspired. That's what the statue should mean, right? That's what a statue or any of those things should mean, is it inspires me that that's the best that we stand for. That's the best of our nature as Americans.
Yeah, you would hope that people would recognize that, but I don't think people understand that anymore. I mean, people they go straight to the Google machine to see what it is, and they decide for themselves at that point if it's worth it or not. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I look like Robert E. Lee is different to me than some of the other Confederate soldiers, because Robert E. Lee, if you do any history on Robert E. Lee, he was a gentleman who was torn between representing the country that he loved and the state that he loved. And he decided to go with the state that he loved. I think Lincoln asked him to be the general of the Union Army, and he told him regrettably, no, I can't. I represent Virginia. That's my state. So here's a man who's torn between loyalty to the government and loyalty to the state, who has decided we want slavery to continue, so we're seceding, right?
Yeah.
He's a man who had to fight against his fellow classmates that he went to school with, his friends who stayed with the Union, some of his family. I mean, those are the kind of things that a statue of Robert E. Lee invoke in me, is how this man handled this terrible situation. And I don't think necessarily, I don't look at it and see, well, you represent the South, and the South, is for slavery, so you're for slavery. So, you know what I mean? Like, I want statues to represent the best of what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think taking them down, it's hard to find where the balance is on that. Well, I don't know where the balance is. But when I look at the Pat Tillman, that represents the best of who we are.
It comes out of context. I think if you take the time and do the research, not on Wikipedia, but do the research and find the context, you can understand what's a good statue to have versus what's a statue maybe we could do without. But that's at this point, that's more personal opinion than anything else, because I don't think any statues are going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, how about this? There's plenty of statues of people that we still have up that if people wanted to really break down everything about them, they may not want them up.
Oh, I agree.
But we're very much more than isolated dates in our timeline.
Oh, I agree. Right? I agree. So, and speaking of Pat Tillman, this weekend is the annual Pat Tillman run. If you haven't signed up for it, I believe there's still time, since it is a virtual run this year. It's 4.2 miles this Saturday. All proceeds do go to the Tillman Foundation, which support kids going to college. So it's a great cause. It's a great run. This will be my 4th year doing it. Unfortunately, my 2nd year doing it virtual. So hopefully in 2022, we're back to running in Tempe, and you can finally fulfill your promise that you will run this with me at some point.
Oh, we're running at some point, dude.
Yeah.
We are definitely doing that.
Yeah. So if you have a statue that you think is kind of weird and still up, and you want to talk to us about it, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all at Liquid Carnage. Or if there's a statue you want to see our EP go off and visit this summer and take some selfies with, hit him up on Twitter and Instagram at liquid_EP.
Hey, I'm glad that you're doing good. I'm glad you're getting a new couch. I'm really excited for you.
Yeah, little things, right? You hit 40.
Yeah, little things keep us going, my friend.
Little things.
All right, man. I'll take us home. Thanks for listening, everyone. We really appreciate you. That was Scott. I am Jason. And as always, if you never know quite what to say, just have yourself some liquid courage.